Hey everyone, I hope you're well. You know what time it is? It is that time to discuss some amazing resources that are available to all of us to help us grow as developers. So, let's get into it. Hey everyone, I hope you're well, playing and or making the games that you love. You're joining me, your host, Max Pears, and it's the first episode of December, so it's a very early and getting closer now. Well, early way to say Merry Christmas. And it's getting very, very close now to Christmas, which you all know that means presents and also the same 5 songs on repeat. It's probably the only thing that I'm not the biggest fan of when it comes to Christmas. I do like George Michael's song though. That's a classic. Wham was Wham. Sorry. There are a few others that I like, but I don't like how it's the same songs on repeat. And now being 26 years of age, I've heard them all a little bit too much. But that doesn't mean I don't love Christmas. I really do. And for some reason, we've gone on this weird tangent of my bar humbug spirit. So I apologise. I really do enjoy Christmas. And if I'm being honest, I cannot wait to get home and chance to see my family and friends. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I'm just counting down the days till I get on the plane back. But regardless, how are you all doing? Very good. Good to hear that. That was a dumb question on my part, and I apologise. But for those of you who are recently joining this, those who don't know, this episode, the bonus episode, Essential Reading, is where I show you some of the most interesting materials out there for us as developers to to read and to learn from, because I do not know everything, and I always think it's important to share this amazing stuff out there that helps us all learn and grow. So there's some great stuff here to check out and some stuff that I really enjoyed reading through, and I've got some recommendations that come from the community as well, which has been really cool to see and to get, and I'm really excited to talk about more of this stuff with all of you amazing people. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. So my first recommendation actually comes from someone off Twitter, and that is @Nightblade, who brought up a great point as I was tweeting about colours and how that's a tool and a disposal for us as designers to use to help guide the player. And we spoke about colour blindness, and I thought it was really interesting. He brought up some statistics, and it was really nice to have this talk, because I think it's a talk that's becoming more and more common as we progress. I've seen a lot more disability talks and it being asked at talks at conferences as well. And he came up to me, he tweeted to me. I asked for some resources so he could show me for some of the statistics as well. And he came with a great one, which is Game Accessibility Guidelines, which is fantastic because it is a ton of different kind of guidelines and setups for people who do have different kinds of disabilities. So this is really cool to see, to understand also, because there's some stuff that I wasn't aware of that people may have trouble with when playing video games. So it's great to see this, and it's a great guideline for us all to kind of just take a look at, to see how we can do such small changes to help improve our games for those who do suffer from some of these issues. I think it's a great one for it, and I didn't realize this. It was 8% of people. I think it's 10% of male, but 8% of the population in total that suffer from color blindness, which is really, really interesting because that's a very high percentage of people when you think about it. So there's 7 billion people in the world. And it's interesting because, again, this is a live document, which it states, and it's always constantly being updated with different ways, and people, trying to basically have different solutions, which is fantastic. And they've got a different list of stuff for basics, so you can understand, and then intermediate and advanced, so you can try gain a better grasp of these and how to help. I think it's fantastic, especially with a lot of stuff like text size. Geez Louise, in the last year, a lot of games have come out with really small text, and I'm fortunate enough to have good eyesight right now, looking at and working on computers. It may change in the upcoming years, but they've gotten smaller, and there is no option to change them. And I think it's it's one of those things, a simple thing that can help. Just asking for the scalability feature of text, and I think that's a valid one. You know, there's some of these changes aren't huge as well that can help a lot of people. So I thought that was great, and it's one for people just to check out. You know, I think it's cool for us to just gain a better understanding. And yeah, it's brilliant. So that is going to be the first link down below, gameaccessibilityguidelines.com. And it's going to have some really cool stuff that I recommend for all of you beautiful people. Next is a really cool one. As many of you know, I'm very much a fan of emotions through video games, and this is a really interesting list called 7 Heartbreaking Boss Fights That Hit You Right in the Feels. And this is by Outside Extra. And, you know, they may not go into a breakdown fully of, like, the design behind the bosses and stuff, but they talk about how it impacted them and why, you know, this boss battle hit them in the feels. There is some spoilers, so do be careful. However, I just thought it was a very cool list to break down, and one for us to all study in terms of, well, how do we get an emotional response in an event such as a boss fight? You know, that's a great one, because normally a boss fight can be challenging or frustrating, but to have one that has an emotional impact is fantastic. And I think it's something that we as developers should maybe, and I'm sure many already are, striving for different kind of emotions other than I just beat the big bad guy. You know, and that's fantastic in terms of what these done, and some brilliant ones are in there. So I do recommend looking at this just to see things from a different perspective. And if you're currently working on a game, how can you add something to the boss battle? I know as a level designer, it's about the locations and how, you know, the locations are in size as long as it works with gameplay to help, you know, show certain emotions that we can do with architecture. So it's interesting to see, again, how you can do that, you know, through lighting, but through a gameplay mechanic and feel of the actual boss battle itself is always something that I truly, truly appreciate. So do go check that one out, my friends. Numero tres is going to be, I don't know why I don't show off my my lackluster Polish a bit more. Next one I'll say it in Polish. And this is designing characters as UI in State of Decay 2, Star Citizen, and Battletech. And this one's a very interesting one. It's talking about basically how your characters can telegraph certain information to the player and using them as information rather than, say, some sort of bar above the enemies or something like this, a way that they can help and guide the player in showing the status of this enemy. Is it damaged, dead, confused, all of these things. And I hadn't really thought about it as in this way, and I think it's fantastic how these designers are thinking about this stuff. I think it's very, very cool. I'm surprised maybe it's just because they had interviews with people there, which I think is fantastic, but I'm surprised they didn't mention more about Dead Space, like from a player's character, shall we say. Isaac is by far one of the best UI built characters designed out there for video games, in my opinion. There's so much to love about the UI in Dead Space. However, they've still got some amazing things in here about changing animation states, the actual model itself of the character, all of these things that can help to show to players that the situation has changed with this character, that either will, you know, telegraph to you as a chance to attack or a chance to back away. All of these amazing things can be shown in a different state, and it's a great way to think, and I think it's a cool one to see. I would like to have seen other examples and also see how well that actually affected players. You know, was there some test results to show that this was brilliant to convey? Just because, and this is just my way of thinking, is that theory is always amazing, but the theory doesn't always work out how you think it's going to work out in practice when making games. So I would have loved to seen, because I've not played any of these games thus far, either some videos from it or some results from maybe a playtest to see if this did increase players' understanding or response from this. I think that would have been nice. But regardless, it's still a very good article. It's on Gamasutra, That's the third one I recommend. Now, before we continue, let's go for a quick break to talk about the Patreon.
If you love game and level design as much as we do, then why not consider supporting Level Design Lobby on Patreon? Patreon is a crowdfunding platform that allows people to directly fund the content and creators that they love. From as little as $1 per month, you can help support us in our mission to unite and teach people across the world about the wonderful and unique field of game and level design, and get some great reward perks in return, such as access to the Level Design Lobby community Discord, bi-monthly webinars, level design weekends, and much more. So head on over to patreon.com/Level Design Lobby for more information and to pledge your support today. Finally, we'd just like to say a massive thank you to all our current backers. It's thanks to the generous support of people like you that we are able to grow and can continue to bring you awesome, new and exciting content. So thank you. And now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Thank you for that, and thank you all the people who do support the Patreon. It's amazing to have you all there. There are some great perks for people who want to join. We just finished up our second level design weekend, which was fantastic. It was about building a God of War level. A lot of people enjoyed that. So if you're interested in that, getting feedback and joining this amazing community, or just to support the podcast, please do check out patreon.com/Level Design Lobby. Now we're going to move on to the fourth one, which is, to me, a great one talking about tutorials. And this one, because I think tutorials are one of the hardest things to design, in my personal opinion. I've worked on tutorials for my own personal projects, but never for a big AAA A1. And I think there's a lot of work, and what tends to happen, and I didn't realize this until finishing up on the Division, was that your tutorial isn't actually started till way later in development. More of the game is finished than the tutorial is, because of the fact that after you have finally got all the mechanics finalized, this is how the game is going to play, this is how it's going to work, the pacing of the mechanics difficulty is decided, then you work on the tutorial. It's actually one of the later things to work on in a project, but it's a fantastic and also a very heartbreaking stage to work on, from what I'm told, because the amount of iterations that must be done on this here is a lot. But I always think it's an interesting one to make and something to study, and of course extra credits always bringing it and always sharing some fantastic information. And they're talking about tutorials that don't talk down to you and context-sensitive design. Breaking down, again, how we should really talk or communicate with players to not make them feel silly. Like, are these tutorials needed in some sense of the fact that a shooter, especially if it's one in a franchise well-known, obviously you're going to have new players, but do they need to know that move the right stick to look up and down, left and right? Because most players will actually know that. And what people don't realize as well is when you give someone a controller, what do you think they do? They don't just hold it, they press and move things. So it's this sort of mentality that goes forward with this. So it's a fantastic one, which is a far better job than what I've said of explaining things. And I recommend just checking it out because it has some brilliant thoughts about how to do tutorials. And I know many of you are working on your own projects as well, and maybe working on a project, a tutorial for a project at work. So I think it's worth having a look at this to see if this can help in any way. So that to me is my fourth recommendation. And now moving on to the final pięć, which is 5 in Polish. I still don't think I said that correctly though, because it should be the 5th, and pięć is just 5, so I still think I've messed that up royally. But the final one I want to talk about, the 5th and final one, is another article on Gamma Sutra, which is called 4 Design Lessons, which are really obvious to everyone but me. And I think this is a fantastic one, as it's breaking down some amazing design, design lessons to people that may be something we may have forgotten or so simple that we overlook, but it's fantastic, breakdown of different designs using different games such as Diablo 3 and other fantastic games as well, and many more. which just, again, it's a great refresher and also might have something new that you might not have realized made a game exciting or that you can add to your game. It's fantastic. It's a really cool one that I've really enjoyed having a look through. So it's a fantastic one. I really did enjoy this one, and I know I'm going to read it again later. So that is all that I have for this one. So again, happy December. And then we get into Christmas. Don't forget to do all your Christmas shopping. I will be doing mine very soon. This weekend is my plan, because I need to get it all delivered back home before I land back in England. So I just want to say thank you all very, very much for listening to the podcast. If you want to catch up with more things that I'm up to or learn any more level design tips, then do follow me on Twitter @MaxPairs. And you can also contact me there. If you want to, for example, reach out to me still, then you don't have Twitter, then please contact me at leveldesignlobby@gmail.com and email me in any questions or anything like that you'd like to discuss. Always up for a good chat. And like I mentioned earlier, the Patreon's out there. And for anyone who isn't, and you're watching on YouTube, do subscribe, or SoundCloud, so you get the latest information and to be notified when a new episode is out. If you're listening through a podcast app, then please do rate this podcast 5 stars as an early Christmas present to moi, just to help grow the popularity of the podcast. So thank you all very, very much. I'm glad that we had a chance to talk about more amazing materials out there. If you do have some stuff for me to check out, like I said, get in contact. It'd be great to see what you're all looking and studying to help you all get better as developers. Thank you all very much, and I will catch you all next time.